Welcome to History with Herodotus, where we delve into the fascinating tales of our collective past. Today, we embark on a journey to explore one of the most intriguing and haunting episodes in American history, the Salem Witch Trials. This dark chapter in human experience has captivated scholars and the general public alike for centuries, inviting us to ponder the complexities of fear, superstition, and the human condition. In the late 17th century, the Massachusetts Bay Colony was a bastion of Puritan values, where the strictures of religious doctrine and the hardships of frontier life intertwined. It was an era marked by an unyielding belief in the supernatural and the devil's presence in everyday life. The settlers of Salem Village, nestled in the heart of this colony, lived in a world where the boundaries between reality and the unknown were blurred. To understand the events that unfolded, we must first consider the social and economic landscape of Salem Village. The community was divided, with long-standing animosities between families and factions. Land disputes, economic struggles, and the lingering effects of King William's War had created an atmosphere of tension and suspicion. It was against this backdrop that a group of young girls, including Abigail Williams, Betty Paris, Ann Putnam, and Elizabeth Hubbard, began exhibiting strange behaviors, convulsions, trance-like states, and uncontrolled screams. These bizarre occurrences took place in the dead of winter, 1692, within the humble home of Reverend Samuel Paris, where his niece, Abigail Williams, and daughter, Betty, were among the first to display these inexplicable symptoms. As news of their condition spread, fear and anxiety gripped the community. The girls' behavior was soon interpreted as evidence of demonic possession, and the search for the cause of this perceived evil began. The finger of accusation was initially pointed at three women from the fringes of society: Tituba, a slave from Barbados who worked in the Paris household; Sarah Good, a homeless woman known for her erratic behavior; and Sarah Osborne, an elderly woman who had not attended church in several years. These women were easy targets, given their marginal status within the community. The accusations against them marked the beginning of a chain reaction that would ultimately lead to one of the darkest episodes in American history. The societal pressures, coupled with the deep-seated fears of the unknown, created an environment in which the notion of witchcraft could take hold and flourish. The actions of a few, fueled by fear, superstition, and a lust for power, would soon engulf the entire community, setting in motion a tragic sequence of events that would leave an indelible mark on history. As the accusations against Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne gained momentum, the community's fear and hysteria intensified. On March 1, 1692, the three women were brought before the local magistrates, John Hathorne and Jonathan Corwin, to answer the charges of witchcraft. The examination was a spectacle, with the afflicted girls present exhibiting their convulsions and screams. Tituba, in an attempt to save herself, confessed to practicing witchcraft and implicated others, including Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne. This confession set off a chain reaction, as more and more people came forward to accuse their neighbors of witchcraft. The trials began on June 2, 1692, with the case of Bridget Bishop, a wealthy widow who had been accused by several people. The evidence against her was flimsy at best, consisting of spectral evidence, testimony about dreams and visions, and touching tests to determine if she had any physical marks that were believed to be signs of a witch's touch. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, Bishop was found guilty and sentenced to death. Her execution, by hanging on June 10, 1692, marked the beginning of a gruesome period in Salem's history. The court, now known as the Court of Oyer and Terminer, continued to try accused witches throughout the summer of 1692. The trials were characterized by a lack of due process, with the accused being denied legal counsel and the right to a fair trial. The most notorious of these trials was that of Rebecca Nurse, a 71-year-old grandmother who was respected in the community for her piety and kindness. Despite the testimony of several people who spoke to her good character, Nurse was found guilty and executed on July 19, 1692. As the summer wore on, the hysteria showed no signs of abating. More and more people were accused, including some of the most respected members of the community. The accusations began to spread beyond Salem Village, with people in neighboring towns being accused of witchcraft as well. On August 19, 1692, A group of 19 people were executed in a single day, including John Proctor, a farmer who had spoken out against the trials. His execution was particularly tragic, as he had been a vocal critic of the court's methods and had demanded that the trials be conducted in a fair and impartial manner. The executions continued throughout the summer and into the fall, with the last group of people being executed on September 22, 1692. In total, more than 150 people were accused of witchcraft, and 20 were executed. Many others died in prison while awaiting trial, and several people were forced to flee the area to avoid being accused. The Salem Witch Trials had become a nightmare, with fear, hysteria, and paranoia gripping the community. In October 1692, Governor William Phips dissolved the Court of Oyer and Terminer and established a new court to oversee the remaining cases. The new court was more cautious in its approach, and many of the accused were eventually released from prison. In 1697, the Massachusetts General Court declared that the trials were unlawful and offered restitution to the victims' families. However, for many people, the damage had already been done, and the trauma of the Salem witch trials would stay with them for the rest of their lives. As the new court took over, the atmosphere in Salem began to shift. In January 1693, Governor Phips issued a statement calling for an end to the witch hunts, and by May of that year, all remaining accused witches had been released from prison. The Massachusetts General Court's declaration in 1697, which deemed the trials unlawful, marked a significant turning point in the community's reckoning with its past. This move towards reconciliation was further underscored by the establishment of a fund to compensate the victims' families for their losses. One of the most poignant expressions of remorse came from Ann Putnam, Jr., one of the leading accusers during the trials. In 1706, she stood before her church and publicly apologized for her role in the witch hunts, stating that she had been deluded by Satan and acknowledging the harm she had caused to innocent people. This act of contrition was a powerful gesture towards healing and reflected the growing recognition within the community of the grave injustices that had occurred. The Salem witch trials would go on to leave an indelible mark on American history, serving as a cautionary tale about the dangers of mass hysteria, false accusations, and the importance of upholding due process. As historian Arthur Miller once observed, the witch hunt was a perverse manifestation of the panic which set in among all classes when the balance began to turn toward greater individual freedom. This insight highlights the trials as not just an aberration, but a symptom of deeper societal anxieties and fears. Today, the Salem witch trials are remembered as a dark chapter in American history, a stark reminder of what can happen when fear, superstition, and misinformation are allowed to dictate public policy. The town of Salem itself has come to terms with its past, memorializing the victims through various monuments and museums, including the Salem Witch Museum and a Proctor's Ledge Memorial, dedicated to the site where many of the executions took place. The legacy of the Salem witch trials extends far beyond the confines of Salem or even American history. It stands as a universal warning about the perils of unchecked power, groupthink, and the importance of protecting individual rights against the whims of the majority. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.